So good evening, everybody. We're in Parshat Vaerah, and we're dedicating this shiur to Al-Tzlacha of Am Yisrael. We want to give details. Everybody knows that we need a lot of Atzlacha in everything. Okay, so today we'll speak about Paro and the Nile. We started last week with the Sefer Shmot, and we have the Nile. And it's very interesting when I thought about it that we have seen Egypt, Mitzrayim, with along with Yosef for a lot of parashot. We were with Yosef, Vayeshev, Miketz, Vayigash, Vayechi. Good evening, Mr. Midov. And all of the parashot, we saw Yosef, we saw Mitzrayim, we saw Potiphar, we saw a lot of small talks with Paro, but we never saw the Yeor as something that exists. The only exception is Sarah of Paro's dreams, when we see Omed Ale Yeor, Sfat Yeor. But you would expect, if the Yeor, the Nile, is so important to Mitzrayim, that in the Egyptian culture, among the things that we encounter in Sefer Bereshit, we'll find more the Nile, we'll find more the Yeor, the Shiabud of Egypt to everybody in the Yeor, and we don't find it. We find just the Yeor in Sefer Shmot. It's interesting, I checked just before the Shiur, some statistic, interesting statistic. First of all, we don't find the Yeor in most places, but just Ktiv Chaser. Yud Aleph Reish, we don't find it Yud Aleph Vav Reish, that you might expect. We have 6 times Yeor in Sefer Bereshit, all of them Ktiv Chaser, and 17 times in Sefer Shmot, but after Makat Dam and Makat Sfardea, we don't find the Yeor anymore, just one exception. We find at the end of Parashat Beshalach, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe to take the mateh and to hit the rock, yeah, that's the first time that he hit the rock, not unlike the Mei Meriva after 39 years that you shouldn't hit the rock, but the first time that it's mentioned, immediately after Kriyat Yam Suf. So he's ordered to hit the rock, and then HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him, take the mateh, take your cane, the same cane that you had used in the past in Makot Mitzrayim. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu mentioned Aleo. So then HaKadosh Baruch Hu mentions Aleo, but basically, after mentioning Makat Dam and Makat Sfardea, we no longer see the Yeor all over the Torah. The next 4 times will be in Sefer Daniel. Okay, so we have 6 times Bereshit, 17 times Shmot, and 4 times in Daniel. That's it. Okay, and we have 6 more Ktiv Maleh, 5 of them in Yeshaya and 1 in Amos. That's it. It's very interesting that we don't find the Yeor in many places. Okay. Do you hear me? Because yeah, you do?
Yeah, you froze for a short second. But can I just quickly, if we're discussing etymology, it's when there's a perfectly good word in the Tanakh, it's found its way into Ivrit Moderni. Why do we not use Yaor in modern Hebrew?
You do use. We can call a canal. We use it more for a tunnel, for a canal.
Nahar, oh.
We don't call in good Hebrew. We do say Yeor for a river, okay? But in modern Hebrew, we don't use it. But we do use it for a canal. Yeor. You might say that you water your field with a Yeor. You might say that. It's too biblical, but you can say that Yeor is a small canal coming from the river and taking the water from the river to your field. We might say that. So it's not an exception, a word that we don't use. We do not in modern Hebrew. But the question back is, why do we find so many times the Yeor in our parsha? As I showed, we don't find all over the Tanakh kimat, we find in Tipa, in Yeshaya Tipa, in Daniel, and Tipa in Sefer Bereshit, but mostly we have just in these two parashot, Shemot and Vaerah. So let's go further.
But if I could ask a question,
sure.
If I could ask you a question, like why would you expect to find it? I mean, they're in the desert after this, you know, like why would you expect to find that word?
Okay, no, I'm talking about, I'm leading the Shiur to see the Yeor not as a source of water, but as a source of God and a source of Egyptian culture. So while by talking about the Egyptian culture, and the Kadosh Baruch Hu speaks a lot about it, even Sefer Dvarim all over, he speaks about Al tiyeh kema'aseh eretz Mitzrayim, al ta'asu, in Vayikra, and in Sefer Dvarim again and again and again, don't learn from Mitzrayim, don't learn from Mitzrayim, remember Mitzrayim. And even in Parashat Va'ekev, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu talks explicitly about the difference between Eretz Israel and Mitzrayim, that Eretz Israel needs rain, and therefore you daven, and therefore you're not stable, whereas Mitzrayim doesn't need it. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't use the word Ye'or. Okay, it's just a matter of fact. I'm not sure that it's a question, okay, but just one thing to remind that also the word Ye'or is located just in two parashot, basically. Okay. Now I want to discuss last week's parasha. We saw two people throwing, one person throwing, or two people throwing babies to the Nile. The first one was Paro, and the second one was Yocheved, okay? And Yocheved doesn't have what to do with the baby because of the Gzerah of Paro. So what does she do? She throws him in an ark to the Nile. And we usually think that that was the right thing to do. But I want to show you a comparison, and you'll decide whether was it logical or rational or whatever. Because when the brothers that hated Yosef so much decided to throw him into the bore, to the pit hole, so what does the brothers say? ונראה מה יהיה חלומותיו. Okay, they cynically say, oh, now we'll see if he is getting along well. So in the ball. So by throwing him into a place, you know, even if they didn't know that it was full of snakes and etc., but if they just threw him into a pit hole in the middle of the desert, they might have thought that something bad would happen. And the same thing happens with Yocheved. I understand that she didn't have another option, okay? It was Ezrat, and if she didn't hide the baby, they would find her. But what did she think by throwing the baby into the Nile? Okay, it's mamash the same thing, like putting Yosef in a bowl, putting Moshe in an ark in the middle of the Nile, because she doesn't know, okay, she put Miriam to watch out, but she doesn't know that the good end would happen, that Bitya would come and pick him up, etc. So I don't blame her, okay, but I just want to show you the comparison between Yosef from one side and Moshe from the other side, and to ask now about the real Gzerah of Paro himself. What did he think by throwing babies into the Nile? I understand Rashi, I understand Chazal, that he had understood before that he saw by astrology that the Moshiach of Am Yisrael would be born, and he wanted to prevent it from Am Yisrael, and therefore to kill all the boys of the Israelis, because the girls didn't care. By then, at this period of time, there was just Moshiach, not a Moshiach girl. Okay, a female. It couldn't be. So he understood that it's just males. Okay, and therefore he killed them.
Okay, it's not good. Okay, we don't
Did
hear.
did you hear me? Did you hear me? Sorry, do you hear me? Are you listening? Are you hearing me?
I don't know what's going on. Maybe you
Hello?
should just close it.
If you
You keep
hear me,
losing
please raise your
connection.
hand. Hello?
Now, Akshat.
Just now?
We lost about a minute.
Okay.
So now
I
we
don't know
lost
why.
about a minute.
I'm very near to the main computer with the main broadcast. I don't know.
We've
Okay.
lost you a few times. We've lost you a few times periodically.
Okay. Each time you start losing me, please raise your hand. I'll know that I'm not heard. Okay. I'll go back to the question about Paro. Okay. Now you hearing me? Now okay? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going back
Hear
to
you.
the question about Paro. I don't understand what he thought. I might understand that he knew Chazal, he knew it from his Stagninim, his astrologicians, etc., that the Mashiach of Am Yisrael would be born. Okay, and therefore he wanted to get away of him and to prevent Am Yisrael from having a Mashiach. But why did he choose not to kill the babies, not to make sure that they are not alive? Why did he choose to throw babies into the Nile? What does it mean?
Well, I think because Chazal say that Egypt worshipped the Nile as an avodah zarah,
And therefore,
and so these babies were korbanot to his God.
okay, that's a nice explanation. Okay, I didn't remember this midrash, but makes sense. Okay, so he should have killed them otherwise, but he chose to kill them this way because it's like a korban to his God, to the Nile. Okay, but from another perspective, and I spoke about Sefer Dvorim and the famous difference between Eretz Yisrael and Mitzrayim. Why is that the Nile is avodah zarah of Mitzrayim? So we usually need rain, and we always have ta'aniyot of the rain. We pray for the rain. We daven for the rain. We know now that it should be a year with a lot of rain, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu postponed it from some reason. I heard that maybe it's because of the soldiers. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we know we have a kesher, a relation with HaKadosh Baruch Hu regarding the rain, because we need that. Without that, we cannot function. Nowadays, in modern society, we need less rain, but in ancient society, we needed any drop of rain. But in Mitzrayim, I might understand that everything is around the Nile. If you know, Mitzrayim is very big, but it has like a skeleton, okay? In the middle, the Nile coming from Ethiopia, and all the agriculture is just around the Nile, because most of the rest is just the desert. Okay, so therefore, in Mitzrayim, the Nile is gone. What did Yosef do? Yosef made the Egyptians slaves to Paro, because before Yosef, every one of them had his own possession, has his own karka, had his own achala, and his own rechush. And when there was hunger, Yosef bought everything to Paro. So it made the whole pyramid. He made the whole Egypt based on the commons, and then the priest, etc. And the head of the pyramid was Paro, that he was the head of them. They were all enslaved to Paro. And Paro himself is enslaved to the Nile. Now, I can say that in Sefer Bereshit, we didn't discuss the Nile. As I said, the Nile appears just in Yosef. You hear? You hear or not? Sorry. Do you hear me? Hello?
Now,
When did it stop?
Intermittent.
When did it stop? Sorry.
before you said you hear.
Okay. Did you hear about the difference between Eretz Israel and Mitzrayim?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So I'm sorry, I don't know what to do with it. באמת I sit next to the big computer with I have no idea what's wrong. Okay. So what I said.
I
Pardon?
say we could all hang up and go back on.
Do you think it would help?
Sometimes it's connecting link. I don't know.
Okay. So maybe if you can do that just for a second, we'll all disconnect and then reconnect. Sorry.